Welcome to today's workshop on the Ertegun scholarships that are available for students at University of Oxford. Um, Very quickly, I will introduce you to Project EduAccess and to our panelists who will then take you over what the scholarship is and talk to you about the eligibility, the timeline, application process, selection criteria, the statement and the essays that you have to write for the scholarship, and then we move to the Q&A. We are Project EduAccess. We believe that access to higher education, leadership, and professional opportunities is a privilege that most people from marginalized communities are systematically denied through cost, information, and dispositional barriers. And we try to improve inclusivity in these spaces by removing some of these barriers for marginalized communities in the global South. We do this by adopting 4 key interventions, such as mentoring, counseling, role modeling, information, advice, and guidance, capacity building and leadership skill development, and evidence-based advocacy. We're very glad to be collaborating with the Ertegun Graduate Scholarship Program in running this workshop. They have very kindly agreed to collaborate with us once again. And we have with us to speak to you and to talk to you about the scholarship. Thomas, who is currently doing an MPhil in Greek and/or Roman history from University of Oxford and is an Ertegun Scholar for 2024-2025. And then we have with us Maria, who is an Ertegun Administrator at University of Oxford. So we're very glad that we have both someone who is a scholar and has gone through the application process and someone like Maria who'll be able to obviously speak more holistically about the scholarship. So thank you so much to the two of you for joining us, especially on an early morning on a Saturday. We really appreciate it. And Maria, I'm gonna hand it over to you now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Maria. I'm the Ertegun administrator. I'm, in fact, the only administrator at Ertegun. We're a small team made up of myself and the Ertegun director, who is an established academic of the University of Oxford, who rotates each 3 years. So each 3 years, we have a different director. He's there to provide academic advice to our scholars. So for those of you who have never heard of this scholarship, it was established in 2012 by the late Mika Ertegun. It is part of the University of Oxford. It is centrally managed and sits within the Humanities division. And the aim of the program is to fund the best graduate students around the world who, as you can see on the slides, the main mission of the program is to choose students who have a plan to enlarge their knowledge, have the desire to extend their vision, and seek the opportunity to exchange their ideas. And we'll speak a little bit more about those things as we go through the presentation. So the scholarship covers 100% of the course fees. These are paid directly by the program. This includes the college fee. It also gives you a stipend for the full academic year. Currently, it's a bit higher than this because it raises each year by inflation. So this year it's close to 19,000 something, can't remember exactly, but it definitely is enough to survive in Oxford. And most importantly, you have access to Ertegun House, which is based in the center of Oxford, and is for the exclusive use of our scholars, where you get a designated desk in a study office with 3 or more other scholars, and a ready-made community. So Ertegun functions a little bit like a small college in a way. And our scholars have access to the building 24/7. including on holidays and stuff, which is an extremely rare privilege in Oxford for humanities people especially. Next slide, please. So in order to be eligible for the scholarship, you must be applying to the University of Oxford to read for a full-time graduate course in any of the faculties of the Humanities division. They're listed there on the slide. This information is all available on our website as well. So all the degrees, with the exception of fine art, which is the Ruskin School, the only degree covered there is the DPhil in contemporary art, history, and theory. So there's only one doctoral application accepted each year from the Ruskin School, but all the other scholarships, all the other faculties submit several candidates to be considered for the Ertegun Scholarship. There are also the interdisciplinary courses, which are run directly by the Humanities Division. Each one of these courses also submits one applicant to the program. And then there are some degrees jointly administered by the global and area studies based in the social sciences division and one of the faculties of the humanities division, which means some of those degrees are eligible. In order to find out which degrees those are, you need to go to our website. There is the list of eligible courses. If you are in doubt, do contact me and I can clarify if your course is eligible. But because I receive a lot of queries from people from the social sciences and some of these are sciences, because they have a humanities component in the research, I'd like to clarify that unfortunately, those people are not eligible to apply because the criterion really is which courses are administered by the humanities division faculties or the humanities division itself. And those exception courses from social sciences, which are jointly administered by humanities, no other courses, irrespective of content, are eligible. Current graduate students, whether at Oxford or elsewhere, unless they're applying for a new degree at Oxford, they're not eligible. So you cannot be in the middle of an MPhil and apply for the scholarship in your second year of an MPhil. You cannot be halfway through your DPhil or your first year, just completed the first year of a DPhil and apply to the Ertegun. It has to be a new full-time also course. No part-time courses are funded, because that's another area which often causes confusion, especially given that there are some humanities courses run by the Department of Continuing Education. Unfortunately, those are all part-time and they're not eligible to be funded by Ertegun. So next slide, please. So our timeline is the usual Oxford University timeline for applying for graduate courses. You submit the Ertegun supporting statement alongside your Oxford application. There's no other requirement for the Ertegun. The only thing you need to do is tick the relevant box on the Oxford application form that you're applying to the Ertegun Scholarship, and most importantly, upload the supporting statement. We will speak a little bit about it in the next slide, but those are the only two things you need to remember. So we adhere to the early January deadline, with the exception of those jointly administered courses by the global area studies in the social sciences. Their deadline is 28th of January rather than 7th of January, which is the majority deadline for most of the humanities faculties courses. Unless you're applying to one of those courses with the late January deadline, in which case you can submit your Ertegun statement by the 28th of January. Everybody else who is applying to a humanities division course needs to have submitted their statement alongside the Oxford application by the 7th of January. And then what happens after you submit your application, graduate admissions sends all the applications to the relevant faculties. The faculties review the applications. They are the ones who select the candidates that reach Ertegun in a long list, if you will. And those faculties will interview each of the candidates they put forward for the Ertegun. Now, I'm aware from many years' experience that the sort of request to interview might come at the last minute from the faculties due to the volume of applications they receive. So just be aware of that, that you may well be asked to interview on a very tight deadline. There's one other thing specifically related to the Ertegun, that we will request a CV from candidates who are being considered, which is no longer a requirement of the Oxford application. We don't have a set format or form of CV. All CVs are welcome, but we will request that either through the faculties or I myself will contact the candidates. And again, this may be at very short notice, so just be aware that if you are applying for the Ertegun, it's worth having a CV ready and available to send to me in whatever format that CV is, as long as it's in English. After we receive the long list of candidates, in either late February or early March, depending on each year, our board of Ertegun overseers convenes first. They are the ones who will look at some of these applications and draw up a list of people they will recommend to the Ertegun Scholarship Selection Committee, which is the body that makes the decision. And it is chaired by the head or the deputy head of the Oxford Humanities Division and one of the sort of humanities faculties representatives, usually the directors of graduate studies, and also the course conveners of the interdisciplinary degrees. So this body is the one that will make the decision. And once we receive the list of selected applicants, immediately after, and we do actually send out our offer letters on the same day that the board meets, the selection committee meets, you'll be notified by myself in a letter. We only notify selected applicants, even though we will send an email to every other candidate on the long list to notify them that they have not been successful. But there is no way we can notify the over 15 or 1600 applicants we received. Most of them we don't actually see ourselves. So if you have not heard from us by the end of March, you should consider that you have been unsuccessful, and it is impossible for us to provide any kind of feedback on applications as well, due to that kind of volume of application, and also the fact that we are not really the ones selecting the candidates from the first run. Those are the faculties. Next slide, please. So the application process, as we said before, you need to apply for the scholarship at the same time as you apply to Oxford. There is a box on the application form where you tick that you're applying to the Ertegun Graduate Scholarship Programme, and then it is important to upload your Ertegun supporting statement. It is available as a Word document on our website. You download it from there, you complete it, and then you can upload it as a PDF. I'm not sure if you can upload it as a Word document. It may well be that the university accepts Word documents as well. I'm not sure on their application form, but either way, it is very important that you upload the statement, otherwise your application cannot be considered. Sort of simply ticking the box without a supporting statement is not sufficient. So in order to find out more information about how to apply to the university, you need to check, obviously, the graduate admissions website, and also your intended courses website for all the criteria that relate to your chosen course at Oxford. And of course, our website is available with the specifics about our own program, including the scholarships, and the supporting statement is available there. So next slide. So the supporting statement, as we've said, you need to upload it by the application deadline. This coming year, it's going to be 7th of January 2025 for the majority of humanities courses, with a late deadline of 28th of January 2025 for the courses in jointly administered by humanities and global area studies. These are usually courses like the Masters in South Asian Studies or Chinese Studies, and Classical Archaeology as well, which is jointly administered by Classics and the School of Archaeology. The statement requires you to answer 3 questions in no more than 500 words each, which all relate to the aims and the mission of the Ertegun Graduate Scholarship. And this year, we've included some brief guidance notes on the website, which you can download and read before you complete the statement in order to help orient your answers. So the selection committee does consider your supporting statement in conjunction with your course application. And again, I'd like to stress, because you wouldn't believe how often it is that people forget to upload the supporting statement. It is crucial that you do so and that you've completed the statement. Otherwise, you cannot be considered for the scholarship. So the scholarship, the selection committee is looking obviously for very highly qualified students academically, but who also demonstrate that they have a plan to enlarge their knowledge, a desire to extend their vision, and who seek the opportunity to exchange their ideas. And even though those sound quite vague and abstract, you will, I'm sure, hear from Thomas, who will speak after me, that you need to be quite specific about approaching those questions. There are no other eligibility criteria. We accept applications from everyone, regardless of age, ethnicity, religion, gender, any other background. You can have completed several masters and still apply for an Ertegun scholarship as long as you're applying for a new course at Oxford. You can have completed even a doctorate and be applying for another degree at Oxford. You're welcome. There is no other eligibility criteria. The only criterion is that you are applying to a new course, full-time graduate course at the University of Oxford, which fits within the humanities division and those few courses jointly administered by humanities and social sciences. Next slide. So this is the first question on the supporting statement. And I'm now going to pass over to Thomas to speak about his own experience in answering those questions successfully. Obviously, since he received one of the scholarships, and I have to say they are very competitive. We receive over 1,600 applications each year for approximately 14 to 15 awards. So the very fact that somebody manages to shine through a pile of so many applications means that they do know what they're talking about in respect to the supporting statement, because it is a crucial document for the Ertegun selection committee. So I'll pass over to Thomas now to speak a little bit about those 3 essay questions.
Right, thanks, Maria. When I wrote this application, I wasn't actually expecting to get any scholarships or even be accepted by Oxford at all. So I wasn't too careful when writing this. I just kind of wrote it. And I think I think it's quite valuable to just sit down and write answers to these questions that come from the heart, and then leave it for a few days and come back and rewrite it, which is what I did. I think that's the most important thing. It needs to reflect who you are over a period of time, not just who you are on the last day before the application is due. So my advice is to fill this out quite a few days in advance and then revise it later. I'm not too sure on how to advise people on how to answer this, because the answers have to be quite specific to who you are and what you're doing. I thought quite carefully about why I was applying, as it says in the tips section. And if I pull up my statement now, I sort of talked about my academic background for a bit, went on to talk about what I wanted to do at Oxford, and then moved on to what I want to do in the future for the first question. If we could move forward to the first question, perhaps. Sorry, I haven't planned the best for this. I might be a little bit chaotic here. Right. Where are we here?
So that is the first question. So
Oh,
please
right, it is.
please explain how your study and career plans will advance this mission. So this is the Ertegun scholarship mission.
Right.
The 3 points that we said before. And then it clarifies that you may refer to your motivations and aspirations, as well as the specifics of your current and future study or work experience. So that is the first question.
Right. Clearly, I have not been reading very clearly.
Don't worry. I'm sure
Maria
you
knows
read
I'm
it
not
very
very good at
carefully
reading
when
at
you were
that stage.
writing it, Thomas.
I did. And that's the first tip, right? Read very carefully. Don't be like me. So yes, it's important to read these questions very carefully and think about how they apply to you very specifically, and to be honest about and to be honest when answering the question. I know a lot of people who write in rather insincere answers to scholarship supporting statements. The Rhodes Scholarship is notorious for people writing in with rather insincere answers about how they're going to be a leader. I know because I wrote one. And people reading these applications can smell insincerity from a mile away. So you have to be honest and sincere, and you have to trust that basically you have to trust that honesty will get you there, because nothing else will, which is, it sounds like something you might find on the bottom of a tea cup or something. But yes, right. So you have to be quite honest and straightforward here. And it's helpful to think about your Oxford personal statement at this point. You will have written a personal statement to your faculty explaining what you want to do at Oxford and why you want to be there. And it's almost helpful to think of this as an expanded version of that intended for non-specialists. So you will have mentioned your motivations for studying your particular subject in your Oxford personal statement, and it's helpful to just take those motivations from your personal statement and expand on them here and explain them in a language that a non-specialist can understand. Now, I didn't do this because I was sort of writing quite quickly, but it's helpful to have people who don't know anything about your field, check these things over and see that they understand what you mean. Because again, you are aiming at the non-specialist. I'm not too sure about what more to say here. This is going to be quite specific to you. Just think about how this applies to you and what it will look like within your entire career. And I answered this question in terms of my academic past. I think I said this already. I talked about my academic background, then I talked about what I want to do at Oxford, and then I talked about what I want to do moving forward after Oxford. So I think it's helpful to locate the Ertegun Scholarship within I guess, within your life, both past, present, and future. I think that's all I can say on this one. Could we move to the next? Sorry, you can tell I've not prepared very well for this. Right. Okay, so this is also something you can base on your Oxford personal statement. But you need to think about how you're going to, right. Yep. So you need to think about how you're going to contribute intellectually to your country of origin or your community and act as ambassadors for the humanities. This is going to be very country specific. I talked about the linguistic situation in my home country. I'm from South Africa, and we have a lot of problems with language. We've got about 12 official languages, so you can imagine it gets a bit chaotic. I talked about what I want to see changed in the linguistic situation in South African higher education. That's not really something you're going to be able to talk about, and it's going to be quite specific to you. So just think about, again, what this is going to look like quite specifically. Yeah, I'm not really sure if I can say anything more on that. Maria, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, I just wanted to integrate that it's not just your home country, in case everybody thinks they need to go back to wherever they came from and do something. It can equally be any other country you see yourself settling in, the UK or somewhere else, as long as you think of a particular community that you want to be a part of. So it can be your non-home country. It can be anywhere you see yourself being after Oxford, and talk about the kinds of things you would like to do, whether it's teaching or whether it's setting up a company or whatever it may be, or sort of volunteering. You know, again, just think about what you yourself want to do. It is tied in with the previous one about your future plans. So it's not just limited to your sort of particular country. If you have no intention of going back, the scholarship does not require that you return to your home country after you complete your Oxford degree. And in fact, we have many scholars who continue on to do another degree at Oxford or go elsewhere. So just think about your specific situation, your particular plans. Obviously, if you've already been involved in some kind of activity and you wish to continue that after Oxford, do please include that. Just be specific rather than vague and abstract. As Thomas said, many people write these grand sounding statements, but the people who are assessing the statements and selecting candidates are very used to this kind of thing. And so they want to see something concrete. You can't change the world in a day or a year even. So just be realistic and specific, even if it seems like it's a small thing. It may well, as long as it's genuine, it may well be that thing that will make your application stand out, as long as it's honest and personal.
Right. Yes, I don't think I can improve on that. Maybe Maria should have been the one to talk about these things. Anyway, shall we move on to the next one? I think that's the last question. Right. So, yes, how are you going to contribute to the Ertegun community during your time in Oxford? Again, this is going to be something quite specific to you. I thought about the groups of friends that I'm part of, and I talked about my friends, what I do with my friends, how I enjoy spending time with my friends, based on the assumption that I would be friends with other people in the Ertegun house. And that was a good assumption, actually. I think. Who knows? I basically talked about three things. I talked about how I have experience putting together conferences and reading groups, and I would be happy to continue to do that at Ertegun House if there's space for that. I haven't done it yet, just because I'm quite new to it. I also went and looked at the Ertegun website and read through all of the conferences that had happened there, all of the events, all of the seminars that were advertised, and I talked about some of the specific ones that I found particularly interesting. I think it's quite helpful to go onto the Ertegun website and get a very good idea of what goes on the scholarship. You don't want to apply to the scholarship and not know what it's about. So my advice is to go onto the website and read everything there before doing your application so that you can apply from a place of knowledge rather than ignorance. And then finally, I promised to make homemade pizza for the other scholars, which is not a particularly academic thing, but it is part of building a community. I haven't done that yet. I did make tiramisu with some of the scholars recently, but I think the thing to point out is that this is not just an academic community, it is a community. And you need to think about how you're going to be part of that community, not just in seminars, not just at lectures, but also at lunchtime or, going out to play or something like that. At the end of the day, it is really just a scholarship community. So think about that, and think about how you're going to be part of that. And I think that sort of goes for all the questions. Think about what it will look like for you to be at Oxford and what it will look like for you to be in the Ertegun Scholarship, and then talk about that. I'm not sure if I can say anything else. If Maria has anything to say, that might be quite helpful.
Yes, so I think it is very important to consider carefully again, because I also read all these statements. And I've heard sort of promises of all sorts of stuff that effectively never materialize. Be quite realistic. But as Thomas said, think how you would be part of this community, be honest. Think of it as another college community in a way, because Oxford, as many of you may know, you'll be a member of a college if you're accepted to study here. And colleges are not just about academics, they're also about social and cultural interactions. And so is Ertegun. It's not simply a scholarship, and it's actually quite unique amongst the scholarships in that we are a small enough community, we all know each other, we function like a small college. We are a very tight-knit community, exactly because we only accept a small number of applicants. And even though we have alumni from previous years, they're certainly not the numbers that Rhodes or other of the Clarendon or other of the big scholarship programs have. And therefore, it is very important that you think of how you would be part of this community, because you're based in Ertegun House. Obviously, you can use the house as little or as much as you want, but we also have a program of events. This is what Thomas is referring to, because there are reports about these events on our website, both the more academic like conferences and seminars, but also the cultural events that we organize for our scholars each term, which include trips outside Oxford to see concerts or performances. Within Oxford, we do a lot of cultural celebrations of people. This year, for the first time, we celebrated Diwali, combined with Dia de los Muertos, the Mexican holiday. So we do a lot of these things. They're very well attended. They're very enjoyable for our scholars. It gives people the opportunity to learn about cultures outside their own. So this is the kind of thing that you should keep in mind. And obviously research plays a big role in this, because we do have a lot of this stuff on our social media and our website, and you can get a sense of what it would be like to be a part of this community. And you should also ask yourself if you want to be a part of this community, because maybe Ertegun is not the scholarship for you if you don't enjoy being part of a community. There are people who just want to come to Oxford and study, make their own choices in terms of friends and stuff, and receive money, obviously, to be funded. And there are plenty of other scholarships that do that. But Ertegun is successful because its scholars are the backbone of the experience. And I think Thomas, just having completed his first term and therefore not being able to do all the things he planned, he still has over 18 months to be able to contribute, and potentially more if he stays on to do a doctorate. So we don't expect people to do everything they've claimed, nor do we go after them and sort of list all the things they've said in their supporting statement, and sort of ask them why they didn't do it. But, you know, be realistic about what you can and cannot contribute. But most importantly, what really sort of will convince the assessors is if they genuinely believe that you want to be a part of this diverse international community and help it flourish as it has over the last 12 years. So most of those 500 words will go to your time in Oxford, but also consider what will happen after you graduate, and what you would want to do as an Ertegun alum, because we do have an Ertegun Alumni Society, which has just been formed over the last year. And of course, it relies on the voluntary contributions of our alumni to run and organize alumni-specific events and things like that. So I think that's what I'd like to add to every useful thing that Thomas has already said. Do we have another slide? Yes, so the general tips, obviously, we've spoken an awful lot about the Ertegun supporting statement, naturally, because we are Ertegun, but we shouldn't forget that the priority here is to get into Oxford, and therefore you should make sure that your course application is of the caliber to achieve acceptance within the university. Because as I said, once you submit your application, the first point it reaches is your faculties or your course conveners. So they are the people who will select the prospective candidates for Ertegun. And it is important, of course, that they are impressed by your course application. So please do your research there. Make sure you know all the criteria that your specific course requires. Make sure you've lined up your references, allow enough time to write your research proposal if you're applying for a doctorate, or your personal statement for a master's. And then obviously enough time for the Ertegun supporting statement if you decide to apply for a scholarship. So as it says here, the shortlisting for us is made by each faculty, but the shortlisting is also made by each faculty for the other scholarships, with the exception of the Rhodes, which has a separate application system, and in fact is already has already concluded. But for all the other centrally managed scholarships, the faculties are the crucial people you want to impress in the first instance. And I think it is important to, we can't stress enough, I think, how important it is to think of your own personality, your own interests, your own passions, your own goals. Don't rely on ChatGPT or other AI programs to write this for you, because they're very generic. They have their uses. They may help you perhaps formulate a text, but you should definitely personalize whatever statement or proposal you're submitting, because we are all now becoming quite accustomed to reading generic AI generated text, and that can easily be spotted. If the personal element is absent, you're unlikely to be successful, whether at Oxford or elsewhere. Oxford obviously receives a massive amount of applications for every course. So please think of yourself and your kind of sort of position, rather than try to sort of come up with a perfect grammatical, syntactical sort of proposal from a AI sort of system. It is far more important that your personality comes through, and your accomplishments, your achievements, your kinds of ideas and creativity. And it is important to, as Thomas said, to allow yourself enough time, both for the Oxford application, but also the Ertegun application. Don't put it off. Write the first thing that comes into your mind as a draft, and then leave it for a little bit and go back to it, revise it. And also, Thomas also mentioned this, find a supportive couple of friends. They don't need to be in your field, because it's important for people to read what you've written, both for the Oxford application, but also the Ertegun supporting statement, and understand what you mean. They don't need to know the specifics of your field, because not everybody assessing your application, whether for Ertegun or Oxford, is going to be a specialist in your field. There will be a specialist, obviously, for the Oxford course, but for Ertegun, it won't be a specialist. So it is very important that you're clear, concise, because there's always a word limit for these things. And as it says here, 500 words may appear a lot when you hear about them, but actually, when you start writing, in order to incorporate everything you want, they're not a huge number of words, and you want to make your words count, because going over the limit is not an option. It will actually not benefit your application, and in fact might lead to it being thrown into the reject pile. So think about it, find somebody or several somebodies to read your statements, proposals, research proposals on your application, because you can only benefit from somebody's feedback. If they don't understand what you're talking about, then it's unlikely the assessors will either. So that's it in terms of general tips, and I think we're going to be accepting questions next.
Yes, thank you so much, Maria and Thomas, for such a comprehensive sort of runabout of the scholarship and the essays. We are now opening the floor for questions. So you can either raise your hand and ask your question, or you can put your questions in chat, or send it to me as a DM or any one of the speakers, so to either Maria or to Thomas, and then we're happy to read it out loud anonymously. I have one question in my DM that I can read, and in the meantime, please, everyone take
Yes.
questions. So the question is, I completed my master's in social work here in India and intend to apply for a PhD at University of Oxford to study media representation of the disabled. Am I eligible for the scholarship?
So this would depend on where you're applying. So is the DPhil application going to be, which faculty is it going to be? Because if it's a faculty, one of the faculties of the social sciences division, it wouldn't be eligible. If it is a humanities faculty or course, then it would be eligible.
Yes, if you want to clarify the department, maybe we'd be able to respond.
Yeah, I'll be able to answer specifically if I know the department.
Mm-hmm. So they're saying social sciences.
Well, social sciences division is a very big so the divisions are the overall umbrella. The faculties are things like classics, ancient, history, archaeology is social sciences. You know, each division, there are 4 divisions at Oxford, and they each have several faculties under them. So unless I know the specific faculty, I wouldn't be able to clarify if it's law or if it's education or if it's something like that, then it would be social sciences division. It wouldn't be eligible for an Ertegun scholarship.
They're saying they can't find the relevant department, neither media nor sociology. I guess
If it's sociology, then it would be social sciences division and it wouldn't be eligible. If it's the Department of Sociology or if it's the Department of International Relations, then it would be social sciences and not eligible for an Ertegun.
Yeah, I would suggest that first you find out which department will house your program, and see whether and then see what are the scholarships available.
I mean, obviously they can contact me by email as well. I can put my email in the chat because people can contact me after this sort of workshop at any point up until the deadline, and I can respond to specific queries with regard to eligibility if you're not sure which department you're applying to.
Another question is, what if it's gender studies?
Gender studies, it depends. If it's the master's in women's gender and sexuality studies, that's an interdisciplinary master's, which is eligible. It is administered by the Humanities Division. There's also another equivalent master's in the History Faculty, which is also eligible. And a doctorate in gender studies, if it is under history, for example, it would be eligible. If it's under anything else like sociology, it would not be eligible. Again, it depends on your department, which department is administering this course.
Yeah, they're asking if they can do a DPhil in gender studies, but there's no gender studies department in Oxford.
No, it would depend on which department. So if it's under English, it would be eligible. If your doctorate is under one of the humanities faculties, it would be eligible. If it's under any of the social sciences division, it would not be eligible.
Yeah, just to add on to that, there is a master's program at Oxford on women's gender and sexuality studies, but that's about it. If you want to do a PhD that focuses on gender, you need to first find a faculty and then find someone who specializes in gender or, women's studies or sexuality studies within that, and then you're housed in that department. So that may be that you do gender through a law project. So then you do a PhD in law, but your focus is gender studies. Similarly, you may look at like English and gender or history and gender, but gender studies itself is not a PhD program at Oxford. Unfortunately, it's only offered as a master's program. And, because I did that program in my master's, all of my colleagues who have gone on to do a PhD are doing PhDs in different programs where they focus on gender. So, for example, I am now in the law faculty because I have a law background. One of my colleagues one of my friends, she's at the education department, and another one is at the computer science department, and one is at history, but they're all working on gender, but their faculties are different because there is no gender studies PhD. But Yeah, and
Yes, and the only one who would have been eligible to apply for an Ertegun scholarship is the one under history. Nobody like you under law or education or computer science, none of these people, even if the content is humanities related, the research content, the program itself is administered by a department which is not in humanities. Therefore, they would be ineligible.
yeah.
So I see there are some questions in the chat. One of them says, good afternoon. In case my DPhil application gets rerouted to masters, would the same Ertegun application be eligible? If the faculty decides to accept you for a master's rather than DPhil, it's unlikely they would put you forward for the Ertegun. They could, but you would need, and they'd probably need to request it, or we would request it, that you resubmit Ertegun supporting statement specifically for the masters. We've never really, I mean, this happens at the faculty level, so I wouldn't have experience of this because obviously the candidates selected are for the Ertegun. What we have had before is candidates put forward for two degrees, and in each case they had submitted an Ertegun supporting statement for each of the degrees. You can do that. You can apply, for example, for a DPhil and a master's, or even two masters and a doctorate. But in each case, as long as you've submitted an Ertegun supporting statement specifically for those degrees, you can apply for multiple things and potentially be put forward by two faculties. The next question is M-Science in Environmental Change and Management in the Department of Geography and Environment eligible? No, I'm afraid not. That's not in the humanities division. Geography is not one of the faculties of the humanities division, so I'm afraid not. Next question. Good afternoon. I have obtained a list of eligible courses for the scholarship from the official website. These should be the ones correct, or are there any additional criteria for eligibility? So no, the list of the eligible courses for our scholarship from our website is the official one. They are the ones correct. There are no other additional criteria, as I said, with the exception of the Ertegun supporting statement that you would need to complete. Otherwise, there are no other criteria. So if your course is listed on that eligible course list, then it is eligible to apply for an Ertegun scholarship. So I see here the deadline for MST Women and Gender Studies was on 3rd December, so it won't be possible to apply for the Ertegun scholarship now, right? If you've already applied for the women, and I'm assuming gender and sexuality studies is what is meant here, you can add the Ertegun supporting statement, even if they themselves won't accept it. We have often accepted statements after, but simply Ertegun, as long as you've fulfilled the criteria and have applied to the course on time, it is possible to write to them and send your Ertegun supporting statement to be considered. For that, we would accept it.
That's really interesting to know because yeah, I think we also didn't know that you could, and we were under the assumption that if you've missed the deadline.
The official university doesn't like to do that, but we are flexible as long as the Ertegun supporting statement is received by the January deadline. So by the 7th of January, if they have received the Ertegun supporting statement, we would accept it.
Yeah,
Any other questions?
I did see a raised hand. but it disappeared. So I don't know if that was on purpose. We are at the 1 hour mark, so we'll take final questions now, and then end the session. So Shadia, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
I was hello, good afternoon.
Hello. Hello.
Am I audible? Okay. The thing is, I have asked a question right now about the eligibility. I was the one who asked the question. My network
Oh,
got interrupted in the between. I couldn't hear you the reply. I
oh,
couldn't hear the reply.
you couldn't hear the response to your question about the list of eligible courses?
Yes, yes, I haven't heard it because I just
Okay.
got.
So,
Mm.
yes, I said those are the list on our website is the correct list. So if your course is listed there, it's fine. There's no other additional criteria for eligibility. As long as the course is eligible, then you are able to apply for the Ertegun Scholarship. There are no other requirements as long as the course is eligible.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Any final questions? Yeah, you can raise your hand and ask your questions directly, or you can, put it in chat. It would be if you have any specific questions about writing your essays or any if you want to feedback anything that you've already thought of, maybe this would be a good opportunity to ask those questions as well. We may not be able to give you specific answers, but Thomas is here and might be able to say something on that. So it would be yeah, it'd be good if you have questions on that, because this would be a good opportunity to get answers. But if not, that's also fine. I've been told by Maria that there's going to be another workshop on the Ertegun Scholarship that's being organized by the scholarship body on the 13th of December, if I'm right.
I see one question. Can the essays be creative in nature, or should we keep them formal? I'm not sure exactly what the distinction is, because even a formal essay is creative. The very fact that you're writing something is an act of creativity. It can't sort of be a story, if that's what you mean. It should obviously address the particular question, keeping in mind all the things we've said about what needs to be included under each question. The brief guidance available on our website gives you an idea of how to address and what to include in each question. Yes, but I'm not sure I understand the question very well. I mean, in terms of what is formal and stuff, but it should be written in the same vein as a research proposal or a sort of personal statement proposal. So it can be personal, but it shouldn't obviously be fiction, if that's what is meant.
Yeah. Thomas, do you want to say anything on?
Well, I mean, I kept mine. I wrote what I think is, sort of relatively formally in terms of the structure of things, but I think I had quite a colloquial, chatty tone. I don't think you need to try to impress them with how great of a genius you are or how good you are at writing. Mine's not the best. I don't have the best grammar or anything in that. I think the main thing is to be direct and simple. That's always key. Direct, simple, and sincere. So creativity can sometimes get in the way of that, if you know what I mean. Don't write a poem or anything. But yeah, otherwise, it should reflect you honestly. Yeah.
Perfect. Any other questions? Otherwise, we can end the session.
Yes, just to say what Misbah said, we will be hosting another webinar next Friday at 6 p.m. UK time, which I understand is quite late for India. But that will also be recorded, and it will join the webinar that we already have on our website and our YouTube channel. That will be run by the director, myself, and 4 current scholars, not Thomas, but 4 other current scholars. And again, we will cover in detail the application process and the supporting statement. So we will be advertising this on our social media with the link to register. It's free to register. So if you want to repeat or think of other questions, you have one more chance to ask them. But even if you can't make those things or you can't think of something now, I've put my email in the chat, but it's also obviously available on the website. And you should feel free to email me with any questions, and I will do my best to record them, to answer them.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Maria, and thank you everyone who joined us today. Just before we end, and I thank everyone, we have developed some, documents on helping you write your applications for universities and scholarships. So I've put a link to that in chat. So have a look at those resources if you are just starting out. Secondly, the recording of this session will be available on our YouTube channel, and I've put a link to that in chat as well. We've already done a workshop on this last year, so if you want to also look at the recording of the session, most of the content is the same, so I'm not sure it'll be very helpful if you've already attended the session. But if you do want to have a look at that recording, it is on our YouTube channel, along with recordings of other workshops we've done on university and scholarship applications, including scholarships to study at Oxford, such as the Oxford India Center scholarships. So do have a look at that as well. With that, we will end the session. Thomas, thank you so much. And Maria, thank you so much once again for doing this with us and for joining the session. Thank you everyone who joined us today. All the best with your applications.
Yes, good luck.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.